If you're over 60, this message could change your life. Strokes don't always announce themselves. One moment you're feeling great, full of pep, and the next, your speech is slurred. You can't lift your arm, or your memory goes silent. As a neurologist, I've seen too many seniors hurt themselves, not out of malice, but due to seemingly harmless morning habits. And here's the truth. Some of the most dangerous stroke triggers happen during your morning exercise. It's not that you're moving, but how you're moving, when you're moving, and what your body is doing before, during, and after the movement. The good news is, most strokes are preventable if you know what to avoid. In this message, I'm going to show you the 5 most common morning exercise mistakes in seniors, mistakes that quietly triple the risk of stroke. They're common, often praised, and tragically misunderstood. If you stick around until the end, you'll learn how to protect your brain every single day, starting tomorrow morning. Let's start with the first silent threat: rushing into exercise right after waking up. Before we dive in, if you aren't subscribed yet, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications so you never miss out on any health advice created just for you. If you like this video, enter the number 1 in the comments section. If not, enter the number 0 to let me know how I can create better content for you. First, exercising immediately after waking up without giving your body time to adjust. At 7:05 a.m. last Wednesday, I admitted Mr. Thompson, a 71-year-old retired firefighter, into neurology after he collapsed during a brisk walk around his block. He was doing what he thought was healthy, waking up early and taking a brisk walk to start his day with energy. But he didn't know he was setting himself up for a mini stroke. That morning, he jumped out of bed too quickly, skipped his water, and immediately headed out for a walk in the cold air. Within minutes, he felt dizzy, lost his balance, and his left leg gave out. A neighbor found him slumped on the sidewalk, confused and slurring his words. This is much more common than people realize. After 60, your body's internal regulation systems, especially blood pressure, heart rate, and brain circulation, slow down and become more fragile. When you first wake up, your body is still transitioning from a resting state. Your blood pressure is low, your blood vessels are dilated, and your brain isn't yet receiving its full supply of oxygen. Rushing out of bed and immediately starting physical activity is like asking a cold engine to accelerate from 0 to 60 without warming up. The sudden shift from lying flat to standing up too quickly, especially in older adults, causes orthostatic hypertension, a dangerous drop in blood pressure. For someone with narrowed arteries, this can reduce blood flow to the brain just enough to trigger a mini stroke, or even a full-blown ischemic event. And yet, this mistake happens every morning in households across America. The price? It could be your voice, your memory, your ability to walk, to smile, or even to recognize your loved ones. One moment you feel fine, the next you've lost control of half your body, maybe forever. The saddest part is, it's entirely preventable. The solution isn't to stop moving. It's to respect the pace of your aging body. When you wake up, sit on the edge of your bed for at least 90 seconds. Breathe slowly. Rotate your ankles. Wiggle your fingers. Drink a few sips of water. Give your circulation a chance to catch up with gravity before you even think about walking or stretching. This small act of patience can add years of independence to your life. And remember this, the brain doesn't like to be rushed. It doesn't care if you're late for your morning walk or trying to beat the summer heat. It just wants oxygen, stability, and blood flow. Give it those things and it'll reward you with clarity and strength. Ignore it, and it may punish you in silence until it's too late. But here's something even more subtle and just as dangerous. What if you're breathing wrong while you exercise? Fast, shallow, anxious breaths. Let me tell you why how you breathe could be a stroke trigger you've never considered. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment the number 1 below to let me know you're still following. Now, let's move on to point number 2. Second, neglecting your breath, taking fast, shallow breaths during morning exercise. Her name was Darlene. She was 68, a retired teacher, and one of the most disciplined patients I've ever met. She walked every morning at 6:30, followed a healthy diet, and didn't smoke or drink. On the surface, Darlene was doing everything right. But one morning, she collapsed in her front yard. Her vision blurred. She couldn't speak clearly, and her right arm felt numb. Her husband rushed her to the ER, and that's where I met her. She had suffered what we call a transient ischemic attack, or a mini stroke, and the trigger wasn't her diet, wasn't her heart, it was her breath. You see, Darlene was unknowingly making a mistake that millions of older adults make every morning. She was power walking and power breathing. With each stride, her breaths became shallower and faster. She thought she was just pushing herself, but in reality, her brain was being starved of oxygen. As we age, our blood vessels become less elastic, our lungs become less efficient, and our brains become more sensitive to even tiny drops in oxygen. Fast, shallow breathing, what doctors call chest breathing, leads to poor oxygen exchange. This forces the heart to beat faster, constricts blood vessels, and disrupts normal circulation to the brain. For someone over 60, this can easily push you into a danger zone. An irregular heartbeat, a surge in blood pressure, or even a clot traveling to the brain. Breathing seems automatic, but during exercise, especially in the morning when your body is least prepared, how you breathe becomes a matter of survival. You might think you're doing something good for your health, but you're actually creating a silent storm in your bloodstream. A storm that could steal your memory, your voice, or your mobility forever. The tragedy in Darlene's case wasn't that she walked too far. It was that no one had ever told her that her brain needed deep, controlled breaths, just as much as it needed water and blood. When you breathe shallowly, your body thinks you're under stress. And for an aging heart and brain, that false alarm can cause real damage. The solution is surprisingly simple, but most people never hear it. During exercise, inhale deeply through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Take slow, rhythmic steps that match your breath. If you're panting, you're pushing yourself too hard. Morning exercise should nourish your brain, not shock it. Because here's something no one tells you. Strokes often don't happen during the workout. They happen afterwards, when your body is crashing from poor oxygen flow and unstable blood pressure. And once brain cells die, they don't grow back. I often tell my patients, if you're walking to live longer, then breathe like your life depends on it, because it truly does. And speaking of hidden dangers, there's another one that creeps up just as quietly. When you exercise in cold weather without warming up properly or protecting your body from the chill, you're throwing the door wide open for a stroke to strike. Let me show you why that third mistake is even more common and far more dangerous. 3. exercising in cold weather without staying warm. It was a bitter February morning when I first met John, a 73-year-old Korean War veteran who believed in pushing through discomfort. Every day, rain or shine, he'd lace up his sneakers and walk 3 blocks around his neighborhood. No gloves, no scarf, no warm-up. He believed the cold air toughened him up. But on that particular morning, the cold didn't make John tougher. It nearly killed him. About halfway through his usual walk, he started feeling short of breath, then lightheaded. By the time he reached his porch, he was slurring his words, and his right arm felt numb. Luckily, his wife recognized the signs and called 911 immediately. He had suffered a cold-induced ischemic stroke caused by the sudden constriction of his blood vessels in response to the cold exposure. This story isn't rare. In fact, stroke rates spike during the colder months, especially in the early morning. Why? Because cold weather isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous for an aging body. As we age, our blood vessels lose elasticity. Cold temperatures cause these vessels to constrict sharply, raising blood pressure and reducing circulation. That sudden tightening forces the heart to work harder. And if the blood vessels in your brain are already narrowed or weakened, even a small amount of added pressure can lead to a rupture or blockage. The morning is the riskiest time of day for this to happen. Your body is already in a vulnerable state. Your blood is thicker from overnight dehydration. Your heart rate is low and your circulation is slower. Add to that cold air, stiff joints, and no warm layers. You've created a perfect storm inside your body, especially if you're over 60. But what makes it even more treacherous is the illusion of doing something good. You're getting exercise, you're staying active, and that's admirable. But if you're stepping out into freezing temperatures with just a fleece and sneakers, especially without warming up, you're putting your brain at risk without even realizing it. I've treated patients just like John, who've lost their speech, their coordination, and even their independence, all because of a 5-minute walk taken in the wrong conditions. The fix isn't to stop exercising. It's to exercise smart. Before you head out, check the temperature. If it's below 55 degrees and 13 degrees, consider postponing your walk or doing some light exercises indoors. Always dress in layers. Cover your head and hands, and warm up your body aside for 5 to 10 minutes before you step outside. Your brain, your heart, and your future will thank you. John survived his stroke, but he doesn't walk alone anymore. He needs a cane and speech therapy now. And every time we meet, he says the same thing. If I had just worn a hat, if I had just waited another hour, I wouldn't be like this. The cold can be cruel. It doesn't shout. It creeps into your bloodstream and tightens everything until something breaks. Don't let a cold morning be the last walk you take alone. And while the cold constricts blood vessels on the outside, there's something even more dangerous happening on the inside. When you exercise without hydrating first, most seniors don't feel thirsty when they wake up. But that silent dehydration can be what sets off a stroke. You never see it coming. Let me explain why in the next section. If you're still watching and finding these insights valuable, please comment the number 1 below to let me know you're here. Now, let's continue with point number 4. 4. Skipping water before or after morning exercise. When I first met Elaine, she was 76, and recovering from what she thought was a random stroke. But strokes, I reminded her, are hardly ever random. Elaine was lively, vibrant, and walked every morning after feeding the birds. But like many seniors, she'd developed a habit she never thought twice about. Waking up, grabbing her shoes, and heading straight out for her walk without a sip of water. That small detail cost her more than she ever imagined. Elaine came to me after suffering a left-sided ischemic stroke. She woke up early, felt fine, and started her familiar route. But about 15 minutes in, she became dizzy, had trouble balancing, and her vision blurred. She managed to make it back home, but by the time she sat down, her speech had started to slur. We ran her tests and scans. Her brain scan showed a small stroke. Her blood tests, thickened blood, signs of mild dehydration. She had no idea that skipping that simple glass of water each morning was quietly stacking the odds against her. As we age, our sense of thirst diminishes. Even when our bodies need hydration, we don't always feel it. After a night of sleep, you've gone 6 to 8 hours without fluids. Your blood becomes slightly thicker, your blood pressure becomes more volatile, and your heart has to pump harder to circulate blood to your brain. Now imagine adding exercise, even a gentle walk, to that internal pressure cooker. That's what Elaine was unknowingly doing every day. And she's not alone. Thousands of older adults start their day dehydrated, putting immense strain on their cardiovascular system, especially during the most vulnerable time of day, the early morning when blood pressure naturally surges. Dehydration constricts your blood vessels and reduces oxygen supply to the brain, two core ingredients that can lead directly to a stroke. And if you're taking diuretics or blood pressure medication, those effects are amplified tenfold. The danger here isn't just what you feel, it's what you don't feel. You might feel okay, no headache, no dry mouth, but your brain, your heart, your circulation are all working harder than they should just because they're running dry. Elaine made a full recovery, but only after months of physical therapy. Her left hand still trembled when she lifted a glass, a daily reminder of what one simple habit could have prevented. Water isn't an option for an aging brain. It's fuel, flow, and survival. Every senior I treat hears the same line from me. If you're walking without water in your system, you're walking towards a risk you don't see coming. Drink a glass of room temperature water before you exert yourself, and another one afterwards. It doesn't take much time, but it can buy your brain years of protection. Because here's something most seniors never realize. It's not just what you do in the morning, it's how consistently you do it. In fact, fluctuating between too much and too little exercise, especially after 60, can put even more stress on your heart than you think. Let me show you why inconsistent workouts can shock your heart and strain your brain in ways you never expect. 5. Inconsistent exercise, overdoing it some days, skipping others, and shocking your heart and blood pressure. I remember Mr. Alvarez. Well, he was 70 years old, a retired construction supervisor, prided himself on his strong work ethic, and even more proud of his decision to start walking every morning after his cardiologist told him to get more active. But like many in his age group, he fell into a dangerous trap. He exercised when he felt good, and on the days he did exercise, he would push himself to make up for lost time. For a week or two, he would walk fast, stretch long, and feel great. But then he would get tired and take a few days off. Then guilt would set in, and he would push himself even harder on his next walk, sometimes doubling the distance. He thought he was being responsible, but he wasn't giving his aging heart and blood vessels what they truly needed: consistency. One Tuesday morning, after returning from a brisk 45-minute walk, double what he usually did, Mr. Alvarez collapsed in his kitchen. His wife found him on the floor, conscious but confused, unable to lift his right arm. He had suffered a mild stroke. As I reviewed his history, I saw a common and often silent pattern: sudden spikes and drops in blood pressure. His heart, which had adjusted to moderate activity, was being shocked by sudden bursts of exertion. These irregular patterns create stress directly to the inner lining of the arteries, increasing inflammation and setting the stage for blood clots or ruptured blood vessels in the brain. What most people don't realize is that inconsistency in exercise is just as dangerous as inactivity. The human body, especially after 60, thrives on rhythm, not intensity. Older adults often believe that more is better, but when you jump from inactivity to high-intensity exercise, you're not building resilience. You're putting your heart and brain under assault. You see, sudden high-intensity activity causes blood pressure to spike rapidly, often beyond the capacity of stiff, aging arteries. On top of that, the cardiovascular system doesn't recover as quickly in older adults. That means the damage lingers, along with the risk of stroke and cardiac complications. Mr. Alvarez is recovering now, but he moves slower than before. He wishes he had treated his morning walks the way he used to approach safety at a construction site, with preparation, routine, and respect for limits. If you're exercising to live longer, then you have to move in a way that supports your heart, not shocks it. That means shorter, consistent, daily movement, not heroic bursts of sweat, followed by days on the couch. Think of exercise like medicine, the right dose at the right time every day. Not too little, not too much. Because here's the hard truth. It's not just how much you move that determines your stroke risk. It's also how you recover. And that brings us to a mistake that happens after your walk is over. When you come inside, cool down, and make a small but deadly error with your medication. Let me tell you what happens when older adults skip or misuse their medications after exercise, and how it quietly sabotages the safety net for your brain. 6. Skipping or misusing medication after your morning exercise. Just 3 months ago, I had a patient named Margaret, 74 years old, a widow, fiercely independent, and proud of how she managed her own health. Every morning she would walk 3 laps around her quiet suburban block, then sit down for a cup of coffee. Her blood pressure pills sat on the counter, but she often skipped them. "I feel fine today," she would tell herself. "Why take them if I feel good?" Margaret came to see me after suffering a moderate stroke that affected her speech and coordination. When I questioned her about her morning routine, she confessed. She didn't always take her medication, or sometimes she took them hours after waking up, depending on how she felt. And on days she exercised, she often thought, well, maybe I don't need the pills if I already move my body. This is one of the most dangerous misjudgments I see in older adults. After 60, your body doesn't regulate itself as well. Your blood pressure fluctuates more rapidly. Your heart responds more sensitively to exertion, and your brain becomes more vulnerable to even small disruptions in blood flow. When you skip your blood pressure medication, especially in the morning when blood pressure naturally surges, you're allowing your arteries to undergo a dangerous spike. And if you take blood thinners or cholesterol medication inconsistently, you risk blood clots forming in the very vessels meant to keep your brain alive. Couple that with post-exercise dehydration or an adrenaline surge, and you've unwittingly created a perfect recipe for stroke. Medications aren't an option based on how you feel. They're designed to prevent what you can't yet sense: the silent damage accumulating in your blood vessels, the plaque forming along your artery walls, or the erratic rhythm in your heartbeat that only reveals itself when it's too late. Margaret now takes her medications on time, but she does it with the help of a pill organizer and a daily alarm, because her memory and a piece of her independence was taken away by a decision she thought was harmless. I tell every patient, you lock your doors at night, whether you expect danger or not. You take your medication in the morning for the same reason, because the threat is already out there. But even after you've done everything right, warmed up, breathed well, stayed hydrated, taken your medication, there's still another silent danger lurking in the background of every older adult's morning, ignoring the first urge to urinate. And what it does to your brain might shock you. Your morning routine is writing the future of your brain. Every morning, your brain wakes up just like you, slowly, delicately, and needing protection. And yet, most of the strokes I treat in people over 60 aren't the result of accidents or bad luck. They're the final consequence of daily habits that seem harmless, even healthy, but quietly undermine the brain's defenses: rushing out of bed too quickly before your body has adjusted, breathing fast and shallow while exercising, stepping outside into the cold without warming up, skipping water, exercising in bursts without rhythm, and worst of all, missing or misusing your medications. These aren't small oversights. They're the very kind of mistakes that accumulate silently over months and years until one day your speech stumbles, your hand won't move, or your memory starts to drift. The saddest truth of all is that almost all of it is preventable. Your brain doesn't need heroic workouts or perfect diets. It needs consistency, care, and respect. A slow rise in the morning, deep, rhythmic breaths, gentle movement performed every day, not just when it's convenient. A full glass of water, a warm scarf, a pill taken on time, even when you feel good. These small actions may not feel powerful, but to your aging brain, they are the difference between clarity and confusion, between independence and dependence, between a life before stroke and a life after stroke. I've seen the cost of ignoring these habits in the faces that no longer recognize loved ones, in the hands that can't feed themselves, in the voices silenced too soon. But I've also seen the power of awareness and small, deliberate changes. I've witnessed patients come back stronger, sharper, and more confident, simply by reclaiming their mornings. So I'll leave you with this. Your brain doesn't care what day it is. It only cares what you do with it. Every choice you make before 9 a.m. sets the tone for your blood pressure, circulation, memory, and mood. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to be present, consistent, and gentle with yourself. Because stroke doesn't knock. It doesn't warn you. But if you listen to your body carefully each morning, you'll hear the whispers long before the shout. And that awareness, that's your real medicine. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply to your life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with the number 1. If not, please comment with the number 0. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.